Atkinson with Sean Bennett, with Mike Bankole, and with Harriet Pryor. Harriet rocking the studio there with the logo, resplendent, absolutely filled with corporate values. You can't argue with them. I've got Nick Cave and Kylie, also corporate values, working right the way through this. We're going to talk about the manager's press conference at length, little bits and pieces that he says is interesting in the aftermath of the Ajax game, with a look ahead to the Leeds United game. If you are enjoying this as a podcast, we've got James Thomas from the Phoenix to join us to talk about the charity work he's currently doing. And also, we have some clips from Homotopia, an event that me and Sian were fortunate enough to participate in on Monday night. That is coming up. But if it's just TAW Live for you, you can get your comments in as we go all the way through this. Andy will prop them up on screen as and when he feels as though they're relevant, which will be exciting for all of us as we go right the way along. And we'll start off talking about returning to bits and pieces from what the manager said today. As I said before, it was interesting, his press conference. But the starting point for me, Mike, is to think about the qualification, especially after the Napoli result, is just a relief for the football club. But it's also a demonstration of the resilience and European experience that the club's now got. You know, it's now a club and a team that really understands the Champions League and managed to shrug off that early disappointment and cruise to 4 wins.
Yeah, I think I remember Jose Mourinho speaking a few years ago about Man United. He spoke about football heritage and how they haven't really got that kind of heritage or understanding of Champions League, certainly in recent years when he was a manager. I think that's the complete opposite to us as a club. We're under Jurgen Klopp. We've had so many experiences of kind of navigating the Champions League, getting to finals, getting to semi-finals. It's just the way we do it. We know how to win away in Europe. We know how to kind of get big results in Europe. And I think the game on Wednesday was another demonstration of that. I think Wednesday's game has been viewed kind of slightly weirdly because of where we are as a team. So because Ajax had that big 20 minutes, there's a lot of context of like a lot of chat about, oh, Ajax did really well at 20 minutes. Liverpool is ropey. Liverpool didn't look great in that first 20 minutes. And because we've had this kind of odd season where we haven't performed well this season, we haven't done as well as we would have hoped, obviously, people are kind of like a bit worried about that 20, even though we won the game. But realistically, we've seen Liverpool play like that away in Europe before. We've seen teams have big 20 minutes against us. We've seen teams throw everything they have at us. And Liverpool will end up winning the games, and it's all like fine. We don't really focus on the 20 minutes that the team had. But because of the context of the season, there's a lot of worry. But I'm actually just thinking that's Liverpool. That's how we perform in Europe. We weathered the storm, and then we showed that we had way too much money on the other end. Salah looks Brighton scored a goal. Nunez scored a goal and was just bonkers as always. And Henderson looked back to form. So just plenty of positive. And I just think this club now, we can go into the World Cup break and into the new year knowing that we have something to play for next year. We have the Champions League to play for. And there is literally no club in Europe that does it like us.
As part of all of that, Sian, at Mike's point, I think it is difficult though not to watch the games in the context of currently what we've seen. You know, it's an inevitable factor of dealing with an inconsistent side when a team begins to start a game slowly or start a game in a manner which is a little bit inconsistent or a little bit shapeless or full of gaps. You do react emotionally whilst you're watching it, and it is fair, therefore, to analyse that team in that context. But at Mike's wider point, I agree that I remember a horrible first 40 minutes or so away at Porto, one season, Porto, where we act as though we always dominate, and we were really on the back foot. And that one, you know, Villarreal last season, whilst we were on the march towards the end of the campaign, that was pretty sticky and unpleasant for the first half as well. And it is what happens with this team in Europe. It is part of the way in which it goes. It's just, my God, at the minute, in the current context, I just love them to bore me a little bit more.
Do you know what? When we go 1-0 down, and I know a lot of that was made in the press conference with Klopp, I'm still not that worried because I think this team is a team that have got goals in them. And you know, looking back to our title runs from when we really started to kick in from 17-18, we were always going 1-0 down, but we were coming back from it. It's the thing that's worrying me at the minute is just the house of cards that seems to fall down straight after it, and I think we don't really know how to kind of reshuffle ourselves after it. But I think, you know, I was reflecting on the season so far, and we've actually showed a lot of character in a lot of games, and there's been loads of big moments already. You know, we're not even at Halloween yet, and we're through in the Champions League. We've won 4 out of 5 in the group stage. Don't forget as well, that's with, what is it, 2.8 million a game. So you're looking at 11, mental maths isn't great. 11, 12 million, somewhere in between that. Just from those group games. And to be honest, I think that's why we won't see that much rotation against Napoli, because it literally is bigger than a League Cup final, that game, financially. But, you know, we've won away in Europe at grounds we've never been to before, the Ibrox, Ajax's ground. We've beat City. We've showed character to win, to quote the great Brendan Rodgers, to win games in the last minute. New big money sign, and he's firing. He's got 4 in the last 5 games.
You're very cheery, Sian. I mean, as an antidote, just have a look at the league table when you get a minute.
my glasses always are full. I just don't waste energy on stuff that's happened and stuff that you can't change. But we've got the League Cup coming up. I love the League Cup. We've got a decent draw. So, I always look at things through rose-tinted glasses. But we've had loads of good moments already. And this is a team in a crisis, apparently. So it's not all doom and gloom.
It's interesting, this press conference, Harry. It's the idea of the team in the crisis. He mentions that, you know, City aren't running away with it. There's a couple of teams around, but then he is very quick to say, and we're not one of them, because, you know, nothing's lost at this point, and I think that's a really important sort of value in amongst all of this, and to sort of push it further, as Mike says, there's the Champions League last 16 to think about on the horizon, and that's exciting. But ultimately, you know, if it does become a bit of a scrappy league title, and we spend a lot of the time sort of feeling as though, God, I wish we were part of this, we always feel like we're 8 points behind or something like that because of the start. I think he will rue it. He will regret it, given the fact that he's been part of 2 teams that have pulled 90 points plus seasons together and not lifted the silverware at the end of it. You know, I think it's not just his concern, but it's ours as well as supporters. I would almost be livid if this league title this season goes with 85 points or something like that, and we're 10 points off it after everything that we've gone through. I really would feel as though it was in some way, something somewhere conspiring against us.
Yeah, I think the manager's probably felt the effects of finishing 1 point behind 2 times, and I think that the players have as well. So I think he'd rather, in his mind, and when he's talking to the media and when he's talking to fans, just emphasise that we're not in it, so that he's not got to have that heartbreak again. So even if it does become close and we do manage to sort of claw our way back in, because I think that's how we have to look at it now. If we're being realistic, we're not in and around that title race chat at the moment. We're not up there, and like Klopp said, you know, there are a lot of teams at the top. It's not just Man City running away with it, but we are unfortunately not in that conversation at the moment. So I think he's trying to set realistic targets for himself, realistic targets for his team, but also for us. And I think we could do with maybe just tapering our expectations a little bit around the league. But like you mentioned, the Champions League just provides a really big sense of relief. It's almost been weird because the form in the 2 competitions hasn't really been carrying over. So I've always felt, apart from obviously the Napoli game, and I think Klopp mentions, you know, not taking it for granted that we got through the game in light of that, because that was a really awful watch. But apart from that game, we've performed so well in Europe. We've looked really convincing. We've looked really clinical, and we've really taken advantage of times when we're on top. And I think if you look at the sort of race chart and the game of how it went against Ajax, they were threatening and on top for a lot of that game, and we took the chances when we were on top. In the league, we just haven't quite managed to do that, and that's why ultimately we're not in and around that conversation. We saw it at the weekend against Forest, even when we were on top and we should have scored. We didn't manage to take those chances and get ahead. So yeah, I don't know where my initial thought process from your question has come from. But
the manager was pushed on this idea that if games were ended at half time at the moment, Liverpool would be in the bottom 3 with Leeds and with
we're shite in the first half an hour of pretty much every single game.
You could have said that in the title, that year we won the title, though.
Yeah. But Sean Rodgers did a really good tweet about all of this after Nottingham Forest, and was saying, you know, if you compare it to the season we won the league, there was games that were really similar in terms of stats and the way of the trajectory of the game to the Nottingham Forest one. The difference was we nicked the goal. Van Dijk header went in. We won 1-0. That was the mark of champions. Those things slightly this season are going against us. And, you know, it's not drastically different team. It's not that we're performing awfully. It's not that every single game we played when we were smashing every season and winning the league or finishing 1 point behind, we came through unscathed. There were difficult times. There were difficult games. There were difficult periods. The way that we reacted to them may be slightly differently to this season. That's the difference.
In terms of Mike, the other thing that's interesting, well, lots of things are interesting from the press conference. The other thing interesting in the context of Ajax is he talks about getting the best out of his players rather than a shape he would like to play, which in many ways I'm sort of pleased by, because my God, I was prepared to fly to Amsterdam about 10 minutes in on Wednesday night and remonstrate about the gaps. The gaps were driving me mad. But he talks about making a team at the moment. He's got to make a team for this week, make a team for next week. Literally says it's getting the best out of his players rather than a shape he would like to play. And I'm linguistically, I think it's quite interesting that idea, but also that he himself is maybe just not entirely comfortable with the current situation. That obviously it's in part influenced by the injury picture, it's in part influenced by the fitness picture, it's in part influenced by bad form and bad starts, as Harriet's saying. That all of these things have currently maybe got him, perhaps in a strange way, being a bit more active in terms of his tactical choices than he would perhaps like to be. He maybe doesn't feel like he's tweaking around the edges as he has done game by game in seasons where Liverpool have broken 90 points. Instead, I think he maybe feels as though he has to remake the whole thing over and over again for every single football match at the minute.
Yeah, so I think when I saw the game, when we were watching the Ajax game, I was thinking, is this a formation we're going to try long term? But then you actually just think it's all about, okay, who do we have fit now? Who can play now? Who's not played too many minutes and can start this game? And how can we fit all of these players into a cohesive formation that's going to work against these particular opponents? I think it literally just is a game by game thing. And we're going to see some games, it might be a diamond again, who knows? It could be the 4-4-2, it could be the 4-3-3 comes back in games. It's all going to be about horses for courses moving forward. And look, I think the way we should treat it between now and the World Cup is you have these 3 big league games coming up. You have the game in the League Cup, I think, as well, and obviously the game against Napoli. The game against Napoli is not that important, given that it's a game that we're realistically not going to finish top of the group. It would be nice to win the game for momentum. So in those 3 league games, it's all about formations. How can we get the best out of the players we have available, and kind of like the players who maybe aren't in form, and maybe a formation tweak will help them for those 3 league games. And that's going to be the most important thing. And I worry about our league form, because what I don't want to have the mentality of is the league's done, so let's kind of like focus on the Champions League.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
Not least because we've got to qualify for it again next season. No shadow of a doubt.
There's that thing, and also the idea of like the league's your bread and butter. So I think we need to enjoy the ebb and flow of the league. We need to try and enjoy going to Anfield every week and watching this team play, because it could be that the more our league form kind of regresses, or the more we're unable to put together a run in the league, the more that eventually seeps into other competitions like the Champions League. So I think let's try and just go from game to game, formation changes as the games come, and hopefully let's go on a little run, because I think the manager is desperate for us to go on a run. Like, he's constantly saying, we're not there yet, we're not there yet. He needs a run, and so do we.
On the formation thing, sorry, can I just say, Neil, on the formation thing, I think what the manager's finding difficult is finding a system that works for everyone, because the diamond, I thought, really benefited some players. So he talked about in the press conference the fullbacks being able to push higher up the pitch. That impacted Robertson, thought he had a really good game, but then it also puts other players in a really difficult position. And I think what you've had over the last few seasons is a system that seems to benefit everyone. That 4-3-3 didn't make anyone overexposed. It didn't make anyone put too much reliance on anyone, but this system, it just feels like that didn't work for Fabinho. That diamond didn't work for Fabinho. That first half an hour, just it wasn't flowing very well. Salah, obviously, in the second half, he goes into it more, but I didn't think he was getting in as good positions in the first half. So how are you going to find a formation that's actually benefiting all 11 people on the pitch? Because at the moment, I think he's switching between formations that benefit 4 people, and then we're getting a result, but then he's trying to want another one, and that benefits another 4 players. I feel like he's struggling to find one that's helping everyone out at the moment.
I think on that, Harriet, I mean, the first thing I would say is I don't think anything ever gets the best out of all 11. So I think you've got it, like, I think you
But the 4-3-3 worked for all 11 for a long period of time.
I mean, it did. What I would say on that, Harriet, is, my God, did everybody think that we needed to get some more creativity into midfield?
Well, yeah.
And so you end up in a situation where the three were carrying everyone else, and sometimes they'd feel overstretched, and people would be saying, why does Wijnaldum look so much better for Holland than he does for us? And my God, I hate this league-winning captain with a passion that you can't even conceive of.
There's no system without any problems, but
exactly.
I feel like, what's the one with the least problems, and how would you use that moving forward?
And also the one which maybe just gives everyone a general sense of calm. Because I think one of the problems, Harriet, I'll come back to you on it, is when you do change game by game, he's talking about making a team, but then those players have got to go and do it. And I thought it was interesting against Ajax, where for half an hour, you got the impression they just weren't quite sure exactly where they needed to be. And then, because the smart footballers who've got tons of experience on the whole, they work it out on the pitch before your eyes, and suddenly it improves. Well, that's good, don't get me wrong, but they could have been 2-0 down by the time they work out precisely where they need to be. And that's my concern with the idea of making a new team over and over, is that you just end up in this situation where those players themselves are a bit like, we get the general principles, Gaffer, but literally, when the ball goes there, am I meant to be there, or am I meant to be here? Do you see what I mean?
Well, the manager literally says that. He speaks after the game, after the Ajax game, and said for the first half an hour we were the worst team because we were unsettled, and that's probably because we changed our system and we weren't sure where we were meant to be pressing, and the players weren't sure where they were meant to be and where they were meant to track back, and there was huge gaps. And then, like you said, because they're really intelligent footballers, they work it out, but you're relying on them working it out game by game as they're literally coming up against counter-attacks, as they're coming up against attacks, and the other team's hitting the post, and then they're like, shit, we've got to work this out quickly. And it doesn't always happen that quickly. So we go a goal down and then we're on the back foot straight away. So it's like you can't expect the systems change every single game for them to instantly work it out and know where they're all going to be. And if there's one thing you could say about Liverpool team when they're really performing well, it's that they all instinctively seem to know where people are going to be around them, where they're going to need to be covering each other, where the other player's going to be when they're making a pass. That's kind of missing at the moment, and maybe that does come down to the constant system changes.
There is something, Sian, in as Harry had said there, the manager points out the fullbacks were able to get higher and be more involved. I thought Robertson was just an absolute breath of fresh air against Ajax. I thought it was a tremendous performance from him. On the whole, I think he still remains sort of oddly underrated for me. We've won a lot of trophies since 1990, since we last won the league title. Since 1988, when Steve Nicol was playing left back, Robertson is without any shadow of a doubt the best incumbent of that position. And that is, it's staggering to sort of think of, Sian, that, I think in a game-by-game sense, we underrate him. And in terms of his pantheon amongst the Liverpool greats, we underrate him. We got to see the very best of him against Ajax, but he is a remarkable footballer, full of pace and verve, and I find him a joy to watch.
Yeah, he is. I think anyone who's a national captain of their own side as well, always want to be seen in the starting lineup, because you heard the comments of him saying, like, afterwards he was like chatting with Nunes, and well, probably not chatting that much because he can't speak the same language, but he's trying to kind of encourage him, and then he's having these jokes with him, and then he's bringing him out of his shell, and then he goes and scores the goal. So I think he's just such a big influence on and off the pitch. I think this season we haven't really seen enough of our best back line together, whether that's being Robbo out, then Trent out, then mixture of Konate and Matip. So they've all suffered from too many combinations left, right and centre. I think one of the biggest shames actually about the Ajax game was one of the goals that Robertson was involved. The time when Nunes hit the post and Robertson was involved in the build-up, and it kind of went from Gomez crossfield to Robertson to it's a lovely move. Yeah, unbelievable. And it's not to say Tsimikas hasn't done an all right job when he's come in, but you just see the levels when he's back in the team. And also, if you're looking at his track record since he's started, or at least played in games, we've won more than not, which is always a good sign.
It's a good sign. It's, you've got we're trying to manage some of these players' legs, Mike and Robertson. He's going to get the odd injury here and there. We've got 3 league games coming. For me, I would not understand a universe where he doesn't start all 3. I think that these 3 league games now are everything. I think I take Sian's point around the money. That's for the Napoli game, and also I take the momentum point. But if you feel as though he needs a bit of a break somewhere, then for me, he gets his break at home against Napoli. He gets his break at home against Derby. He's starting the 3 league games back to back because that's how important he is.
Yeah, to use the boring football cliche, those games are our 3 cup finals between now and the World Cup. Those are the games we need to win. And you'd want Robertson on the pitch for all 3 of them. You'd want our best players on the pitch for all 3 of them. And arguably, resting players in those midweek games against Napoli and Derby will get the best out of them in those 3 league games. So I'd love to see Robertson on the pitch that day. I'd love to see Trent on the pitch for those 3 games. And let's keep him fresh. I mean, one of the things Robertson struggled with is he's played a lot of football, much like all of the lads have. They played so much football last season. But he's played a lot, and because of the way he plays, Robertson at his best is an intense footballer who goes up and down that left-hand side. Because of the way he plays, you can't do that if you're playing too many games. You can't do that to the best of your ability if you're playing too many games. And I think against Ajax, the reason I was so encouraged by the performance is because there's like a level of freshness to the way he approached the game. Yeah. And the intensity felt like it was back. Like Robertson at his best is very intense, very quick to the ball defensively, quick, making decisions in the final third. And that all came back against Ajax. And I think to get the best out of him and to get the best out of a lot of our players moving forward, it is about picking their games and managing their minutes. And yeah, so I would desperately want to see Robertson play on the weekend. And in the last sort of 3 league games, I think he needs to start all of them.
I think the other player I wanted to point out, Harriet, who sort of maybe got a little bit lost in dispatches because Nunez scores again. Elliott gets a belter. Even the fact that it's the quality of Henderson's ball through forced Salah. Salah gets a goal and an assist against Ajax to sort of go with other performances he's thrown in recently. This is Salah in very, very good form. You know, with one eye on the weekend, he's got a pretty good record historically against Leeds United and especially at Anfield. I feel as though there's a couple of big performances in the next couple of weeks coming from Mo Salah. It wouldn't surprise me to see him make the difference against Tottenham. And I think he's lined up quite nicely for this one coming against Leeds. He's beginning to pair.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's because whenever Nunes scores, we just can't help but talk about the constant chaos that he makes every single game. But Salah, I think, it's just interesting, the conversation around him, that people are still talking about him being out of form since the turn of the year, really. But I just don't think this season he has been. Obviously, when the team isn't performing as well, every single individual in it isn't going to look up to their best. But for me, he's always the one that's creating. He's always the one that you can rely on. And yes, Nottingham Forest may be the exception of that. And maybe a couple of games this season where he's just been pulled too far out wide. But since he has been playing in that more central role, and I feel like his link up as well with Nunes and as well with Harvey Elliott on the right really developing now, and you can see the impact that he's continuing to have. He gets the goal, he gets the assist. The assist was a nutmeg, by the way, which I only realised today when I watched it.
A no look reverse pass nutmeg.
It was absolutely beautiful. I can't believe I just didn't even realise that because of the nature of the finish that I was focused on. But he's just incredible, so under the radar, so just lovely to have on the pitch at all times. Just love him, and we just should talk about him more because I feel like we've stopped in this season. We've been focusing on all the negatives rather than the loveliness of Mo Salah.
He managed to grab our attention after Manchester City, Harry, to be fair to him.
This is true. He had a big cameo after that game.
Yeah, a lot of chat about him then. But it is a fair point, Sean, that, you know, if we can keep, I mean, this is for me the strangest thing about this little run is I feel like Roberto Firmino's in pretty good form, especially in front of goal. Mo Salah's in pretty good form. Darwin Núñez just bangs them in, seemingly, you know, as given the opportunity. And that's why it is frustrating to sort of look at the league table because, you know, if you'd have said that to me before the ball was kicked this season, I'd have gone, well, Liverpool will be there or thereabouts. You know, if you've got three lads who all play very close to the opposition penalty area, all being like they're playing well and contributing and putting the ball in the back of the net, it is the little missing piece, isn't it? And Salah is a massive part of that, and he is playing ever so well.
Yeah, he is. I think we've, you know, lots being made about how much money we're paying him. You know, I have people in my work group WhatsApp laying into the size of the contract after the first few games, but you know, he's proven time and time again he's worth every single penny. And I think we're paying big money for his versatility. Probably him and Mane's biggest strength towards the end of his time at Liverpool. You know, we could put him anywhere on the pitch and he'd adapt and perform. And we're seeing that with Salah. You know, he can get 30 plus goals a season from playing on the wing, but we're seeing he can also play centrally. He can be that poacher in the box. He can link up at Nunes and Elliott. I think he is, and as we're seeing with a kind of striker like Nunes, where we're having to try and, you know, almost bend the team around him. Like, that's what you pay the money for, a player who can just fit into any system. And one thing that Liverpool are doing at the minute is playing many different systems, so it's definitely paying dividends at the minute.
Do you think the press, Neil, can I ask this as a question? Do you think it's been slightly less effective in the sense that, I'm just thinking about Salah and the forward line, I feel like usually when they press to win it back and win the ball really high up the pitch. This season it feels a little bit like they're just pressing for the sake of it and they're not actually trying to win the ball back that high up the pitch.
I think that it's a little bit more of a midfield press, and I think when they've been a little bit better this season is when they've been picking the battles a little bit and not been getting sort
Against
of sucked
Man
in.
City, they really stepped off the press at the
yeah,
line.
And they waited until they got to a certain point. I think that they found. I think the thing that Napoli did brilliantly and other sides have done quite well is have a solid how to get to 35 yards against Liverpool plan that maybe has not been quite as present in the past. And I think part of that's been actually taking a risk and starting effectively from your own goal line, because you can't control where Liverpool's offside line is or where the halfway line is, but you can control your own starting point. And I think that's given Liverpool, both for the midfield and the attack, a couple of little questions as to, well, do we go all the way into there? Because if you do, it creates more space to come out into here. So I thought even Everton, when we went to Goodison Park, they only had to get to 35 yards plan because then, and I would still argue now, that weren't quite good enough to do the next bit, unlike Napoli, whose average positions for passing was so deep, so deep, but they could get to 35 yards, and then when they got to 35 yards, they could get to 60 yards, and then when they got to 60 yards, there was no Liverpool defenders anymore. Because they'd managed to bypass everyone at that point. And I think that's the thing that we're still trying to solve as to whether or not we can do a full almost crazed press all the way back into people's, and that's part of. So am I going to win it, or are we going just to sort of to make them play it a little bit earlier? But if that happens, then everyone's got to be on the next phase as well, and I think that sort of hurt that a little bit, because they're still in attack. You know, the pressures against Ajax really high, considering the fact it was a 50-50 possession game from Liverpool, and from those attackers in there as well. I think all three of Firmino, Nunez, and Salah were the other side of 20 pressures over the course of the game. So it suggests that they still do want to be sort of determined to win it back when it's there. But I think that the sides have been a little better this season of saying, where you've traditionally pressed us, we're actually going to take a couple more risks in a couple of senses, but we're going to actually keep the ball away from you a tiny little bit more. And that's made it hard for them. All right, then. That has been part one of TAW Live. Coming up, we've got James Thomas talking about the charity work he's been doing out of the Phoenix Hotel, which is where we've been lucky enough to film at times this season. We'll be there one last time for the game against Southampton. Also, we were part of the panel on Homotopia on Monday, done in the Liverpool Club shop. Whilst there, John Gibbons spoke to a few people. You'll hear them back to back. Then you'll hear me and James. And then, if you are part of TAW Live, we will be back with Sian, with Mike, and with Harriet. And we are back 25-30. 31, says Andy. Dispute in the private chat for TAW Live. Thank you very much indeed. We've released the full panel of what we did at Homotopia on YouTube. If you're interested, you want to engage with it, you want to sort of hear different points of view to perhaps many of the ones you'll have heard over the course of your life around supporting Liverpool, I think it's a good way to do it. It's a good first piece of engagement. Beautifully put together by Fuad Hassan. Big edit job there, 55 minutes of it. It sits there on YouTube, though, so do get stuck in and enjoy that if possible. Also, whilst I've got you, we have got live shows coming up in Ireland the first weekend of December, the start of Advent. We will light candles if that's what it takes. There will be an Advent calendar. Chocolate will be available. I've got a full plan around that one. So that is coming up. You can get the tickets from all the places you normally get Anfield Wrap tickets from. theanfieldwrap.com/TAW live. We'll do that for you. Last little bit of admin is we are nominated as Fan Media of the Year in the FSA Awards. Voting closes on the 31st of October. If you'd like to vote for us in that, we are obviously grateful. You don't have to. These things happen, you know what I mean? Awards are awards. It's nice to win them. It's not the end of the world if you don't, because you keep doing the job anyway for its own purpose and its own enjoyment. But it would be nice to win. So, 31st, you can find that. We'll tweet that out, or it'll come into the comments on this or something like that. I mean, it's not that hard. So we're banging around about it everywhere, to be quite honest with you. I probably should have a convenient link. Maybe I should have thought about that. But we are where we are now.
Right now.
We are where we are, Harriet. Do you know what I mean? We're just gonna have to make do amend and encourage send people towards the FSA in order to be able to find that. It'd be great if you can vote for us, and there's other people you can vote for there that you might like to as well. Where I'd be pulling a slate together, Conor McNamara and Jamie Carragher and Kate Longhurst would all be on said slate. So with Susie Rack, to be quite honest with you, so do the decent thing there across the board, and we will go and see where we end up. Anyway. We'll move back and we'll think about this game that's coming up against Leeds United. I mean, first and foremost, before we, even begin to mess about, Sian, why aren't more games 7:45 on a Saturday night? That's my big takeaway.
It's worked out really bad for me, so I can't go to the game now because I'm DJing. Lauren's got a night on in Williamson Tunnels.
You're just too big time to go to the football now. You just got gigs to attend.
Because I wish. So that starts at 10. So my logistics have been thrown off, but because it's Halloween weekend, obviously we're all getting dressed up. So I booked my makeup in ages ago. I'm going as a jester, so I'm getting all this makeup done. And the latest she could do me, is 3:30. And then when I saw the match get pushed back, I also, with the context of where my seats are, I am front row of the main stand, which means I'm usually on telly.
No, come on, you've got to go the game. Come on, we all honestly.
No, but the second thing is I'm right by the away fans, so as if I'd be getting away with that, I would be getting.
No, I mean, let's not. We're not even going to conceive of the Leeds United away end on Saturday before we have to put up with it. So I'll sort of let you have that one to an extent, but I just love the idea, absolutely adore the idea that Pascal Struijk is put off from playing right back by virtue of this woman with jester makeup on in the front row, ends up having nightmares about it, years to come. Why did you concede that goal, Pascal? Well, you won't believe what was in my peripheral vision, you're saying.
Good idea, actually. Yeah, anyone going the game on Saturday, maybe follow suit. But yeah, I can't make it, unfortunately. But I'm going to try and catch some of it before we set.
There's not enough 7:45s on a Saturday night, Mike. The manager said it's the perfect time for football. As ever, he and I find ourselves inexorably linked in that view. It is the perfect time for a football match.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure why that isn't the case more often. Like you wouldn't want to play 7:45 every weekend on a Saturday, but if it was like a nice time, you can enjoy the first half of the Saturday. Neil would love it. Yeah. He absolutely would. You can have.
I think he'll leave ours about 20 past 11. To be honest with you, on Saturday, Mike.
Why 20 past?
I'm thinking about the train. It's 3 minutes to get there. Go on.
Yeah, but you just have your weekend, you go for a drink with your mates, grab something to eat, I don't know, chill out in the city. But you got the football. That's a lovely way. That's just a lovely Saturday. That's what we live for. But yeah, it doesn't seem like the powers that be want us to have fun Saturdays, Neil. You need to have a word with them, honestly.
Honestly, if I did the schedule and the number of Friday and Saturday night games Liverpool are going to be absolutely obscene.
I am missing Strictly Come Dancing, though. And I know this isn't a big concern to everyone because there's probably not that much Liverpool's / Strictly Come Dancing crossover fans, but I am one of them.
No, there can be no. I'm absolutely fine with that Venn diagram existing, but you've got iPlayer, is what I will point out.
Yeah. I will be at the match. I'm not going, to be clear, to watch.
Yeah. Andy in the comments says Saturday night kickoffs are very continental.
They happen all the time in Spain, don't they?
And so am I. So this is one of the reasons why we end up where we end up. It will be a joy to be that continental more often. Unfortunately, as it is, we don't get the opportunity. All right, we'll park that one and we'll talk about the fact that the manager goes out of his way to say in the press conference, Mike, that Leeds United are playing well, but they're winning nothing. I've just had a little look. The last 8. Leeds have posted better expected in 4 of the last 8. Leeds have posted better expected goals than their opposition. In 3 of the other 4, they're within 0.5 expected goals. There's only Aston Villa, weirdly, who whack them on the stats. They outplay Arsenal and deserve all 3 points. We sort of know this tune a little bit. The manager's emphatic on it. March has talked about being sick of losing in his press conference. I mean, all of that can be true, but simultaneously, there is a reason why you are consistently getting beat. And Liverpool have got to find that reason and repeatedly press the button of that reason, Mike, in this one.
Yeah, the manager was typically polite in that whenever he speaks about opponents, he does try to accentuate their strengths, and almost to the point where you're thinking, are we playing like Barcelona 2011 this weekend? He was very polite about Leeds. He was just listen, their underlying numbers are fantastic. They're doing a good job. They haven't got results. Things haven't gone their way, and that's true. Whenever I watch Leeds, there's a youthful energy about them. Sinistero looks really, really good. I like the lad Aronson, I think his name is.
Yeah.
Harrison, I think, has had a good season as well. So they got some good players. I think injuries haven't helped. So Bamford's missed last chance of the season. Rodrigo's just come back from an injury. He was when he had that good run at the start of the season, he was scoring all the goals. He was getting on the end of things. So he's been a big miss for them, and I think he scored on his return last weekend, so he's obviously a big player for them. But they are, when in the table, they're not performing well, and there's reason they're there, and that's ultimately you can have good underlying numbers, but it's another football cliche from me, and I've used quite a few of them today on this pod. But it's a results business, right? It's all about the results, and look, they're a team at low on confidence, and also their fans are starting to turn a tiny bit on Marsh, which is the important thing.
It's more than a tiny bit, Mike. Sian in the comments, Ian Schroeder, Gerhard's lad, says that if we score first, their fans will turn. His wife is a season ticket holder at Allen Road and has assured him that locals aren't happy. That's the vibe I've been getting game by game, is that, they're almost sick of the hard luck stories themselves, Leeds supporters, and that's the vibe that's coming over. They know that they can play good stuff. They think they've got quite good players, but they will, I think, find themselves pretty negative, I think. And this is why Liverpool got offered them no encouragement. Liverpool need to get in, dominate, and not give Leeds United a sniff, because I think from there it's a football team that might well begin to fall apart a little bit. John.
Oh, sorry. Just
okay.
Away there. Yeah, no, it is. I think I get a bit of a knot in my stomach when it comes to us playing back in the Premier League, because we seem to have this, lovely tonic of Europe midweek, and it shows us at our best because teams have got to take risks. They've got to come out. Financially, what's on the line in the group games is a lot more. But I do expect a lot more hair pulling in the league, especially against Leeds, because they just. They just don't have to play for the win. It does feel like when we play midweek, when we play midweek, like I'm flying. It's like you've clocked off work, you've got no worries in the world, and you get that kind of Sunday night doom feeling that we're going to play in the league again. But what I did love about the Ajax game, and what I think is a big learning for the Leeds game, is that they were on top of us. We were pressing, but not with any purpose. Completely against it for 20-25 minutes. But how devastating we were in those 10 decisive minutes either side of the first half and the second half, completely finished them. So I think what we will expect against Leeds is there will be gaps in this formation. There will be dangerous spells from Leeds, but if we can ride them out and be as clinical as we were against Ajax to finish the game, I think we'll be fine.
I think that the riding out, there will be, I think, Harry, it's a game of football will break out because of the nature of how they play, because of Marsh, the pressure he's under. It doesn't feel like they've stopped playing for him. I think it's a fan. When I say before about a football team that could fall apart, I don't think it'll be through the fact that out of laziness, if anything, it might be through sheer anger and emotion. That's what I'm seeing when I'm seeing Leeds at the minute. They seem to fray at the edges during matches a little bit because things aren't quite going their way. That's why, for me, the most important thing is, yet again, that Liverpool just don't offer them any encouragement. You know, we don't want it to be a ding-dong affair. I'd rather it just dinged repeatedly from Liverpool's point of view, to be quite honest with you. And that's got to be the aim, I think, from Liverpool. They've got to just get hold of that game, not give them an inch, and just ensure that the first goal's a Liverpool goal.
Yeah, I was speaking to Darren yesterday from LS11 for the pre-match warm-up. It goes in now, doesn't it? And he was really interesting, actually, because he was saying about the manager and the questions that people were saying this Liverpool game will be the big one for him, and if they lose that, then that could be him out. But he was kind of the opinion that he's got a few more games, at least till the World Cup period. So I don't feel like this is the be-all and end-all. I don't feel like they're going to be coming with all this pressure on their back. But he was really keen to emphasise that he doesn't think they'll set up really defensively in the way that Nottingham Forest did, for example. They have 9-10 men behind the ball at all times. He doesn't think that Leeds will play like that, even coming to Anfield, even coming up against Liverpool. And I think that's what you can expect from them, that they will try and still play quite a fast-paced style of football. And then in those cases, we have to make sure that, in that first 20 minutes, we are compact, we are tight, we don't let anything get through the gaps, and that we just make sure that at least for the first half, we don't concede a goal. That would just be lovely, wouldn't it? But I think that even when they've not been playing well, you saw in the Fulham game that they lost at the weekend, they scored a late goal. They were trying to get back into it. They have moments where they can break through games, and I think that's what they have seen. Even when they've not won, they've seen moments in games where they feel things have gone against them. They've had opportunities, they've scored goals. So they are still capable of that. They're just conceding a lot, aren't they? They're conceding a lot of goals. They're very porous in the defence, so we just need to be taking advantage of that. And someone's put as well in the comments, they haven't got a left back, so their fullbacks are their weak points, says Ian.
Excellent stuff. I mean, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating on that one, Harry.
Exactly.
It might be worth us, maybe playing lads who play in wide areas. You never know. Something for us to think about. In terms of what he does, Mike, for us, I think I'll be amazed if we don't see TAW. Henderson's a doubt, which came as a little bit of a surprise to me, but everyone else seemed to know.
He seemed positive though. He wasn't. It wasn't like I'm actually worried about him not starting. I think he does expect him to start, but just isn't 100%.
Yeah, he said something like he thinks he should be okay.
Yeah.
Should be okay in there. As I say, I don't know quite what's gone wrong. Maybe I had to, carry a load of the copies of the book to places or something. A bit tired. Oxlade-Chamberlain is presumably close at this point. No Matip. Konate, it sounded, Mike, in the press conference, though Konate might still be a week away from a start. So with all that in mind, I don't think it's going to be a massively changed Liverpool side from the one against Ajax. What do you think?
Yeah, just Darwin into Navas for me, and I'll be very, very happy. Just get the main man on the pitch and let the fireworks start on a 7:45 on a Saturday. But I think it will be a similar team, and I worry slightly about that, just because I think a few of the players that played on Wednesday have probably played too much football in recent weeks. So Joe Gomez is probably going to have to go again. I think he's played a lot of football, and Sean Rogers makes the point on the review about how Gomez is one of those players who you give 2 good games a week. You don't want him to play like 3-4 games in a week because it just gets too much for him. So worry slightly about him. And I think Firmino is another one who actually felt like his performance on Wednesday felt like a Firmino of old performance, where he's trying to get like his mates in the score sheet, he's trying to assist his mates, and he's neat and tidy in and around the box. But I worry about his minutes. But I'll probably start him. I'll start Nunes up front. I would go with the 4-4-2 we've seen a few times this season, and have maybe Salah on the right, even though he doesn't look quite as fluent on the right as he does when he's playing kind of centre forward alongside.
Who plays from the left in this universe, Mike?
That's the thing. He'd probably stick Carvalho out there, but I'm not too
I
comfortable
don't
with him
like
being out there
Carvalho
on
and
the left.
Elliot at the same time. I just
I
feel
wouldn't.
like
I wouldn't have. So I would have Salah on the right. I would have Nunes and Firmino up front. Carvalho on the left. Probably Fabinho and Thiago in midfield, and the back four or back five that we saw in midweek. I think that might be our way home. But I'm not too comfortable with Salah playing on the right. But then I'm also not comfortable with him and Nunes up front together in the 4-4-2. I think it works well when we play the diamond, but probably not when we play 4-4-2. And again, like Elliot and Carvalho on the pitch at the same time. Not anytime soon, please.
Sian, how do you feel about that? I wonder if we might get Oxlade-Chamberlain off the left, either from the start or for half an hour.
Yeah, potentially, but I think it's just another change that we don't need. I think, although it was a rocky first 20, you can't argue that we were playing them out the park for the rest of the game. So I think he goes full strength again. We've got the chance to rest at Napoli. These two games now, Leeds and then Tottenham away, are the biggest games we've got before the break. If you're looking at Southampton, realistically, we'll have fresh legs for that from the young ones probably coming in against Derby.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't think it's the type of game I want to throw Chamberlain in, because it is actually massive. I think we need to get another 3 points. I don't think we can go any more Premier League games without it. So the only change I really see coming in is probably Thiago for Henderson. I personally wouldn't start Fabinho. I know there's a whole lot like the cliche of playing him into form or whatever, but something is just not right there. And I think there's just been far too many games where we're saying something similar. Bit of a hipster opinion, but I was quite into Curtis playing in the centre in the first half against Forest. So I wouldn't be opposed to seing that against Leeds.
Oh, you might see Curtis off the left.
Good
yeah.
shout.
You might see Curtis off the left in this one. What do you think he's going to do?
I think Firmino definitely comes in. Are we against bringing Konate in? What's his?
I think the manager sort of gave us the impression it might be a little bit too much too soon for him in the press conference. But you never know. He may be absolutely in great shape today.
So in that case, I think the back five stays the same, as we've already said. I just played Thiago and Henderson together, and then maybe you're thinking about playing two players that one has just come back from a period out and one has just picked up a knock. But I think if they're both fine and available to play, I would just play them both together, because like Shani, I just get the sense that Fabinho needs a little bit of a rest at the moment, and it's not very helpful. Just keep playing him when he's just not performing very well. And then I'd have Nunes in the middle. I'd have Firmino, Salah off the left, and then I just don't know what I do in that left position, to be honest. Maybe it would be Jones. I don't think Oxlade-Chamberlain will start. I still feel like he needs more foot. He only got one touch when he came on, didn't he, the other day in 15 minutes or however long he played, so probably wouldn't bring him off the start. Yeah, maybe Jones. We'll give Jones a go.
There we are. Ended up with Jones there. As I say, there's a Chamberlain question mark. Elliot and Carvalho did feel a bit too much against Nottingham Forest. Okay, excellent stuff. Thank you very much indeed to Harriet, to Mike, and to Sian. Saturday night at Anfield, 7:45 kickoffs under the lights on a Saturday for Darwin Núñez. He'll be absolutely good to go. Hopefully, we get to see the very best of him. He scores a goal, runs directly up into the Kop, comes down the other side, gets a cab, ends up in the Williamson tunnels with Sian and with Lauren, having a fantastic time. There he is at 1 a.m. Maybe got the match ball somehow. No one quite knows how it's happened. It's been your tour live. Thanks to Andy Heaton for producing, I'll say again. Everyone who's come on the inserts in the middle there as well. Sian, Mike, and Harriet, whatever you're doing this weekend, well, I say whatever you're doing this weekend, it's defined by one thing and one thing alone. 7:45 Saturday. It does not get better than that.